welcome to today's talk, Gender, Beauty, and the Camera. My name is Dana Caputo. I am a longtime friend, collaborator, and subject of Jessica's, and I'll be moderating today's talk with photographer Jessica Yatrofsky and cover model Gabrielle Blevins. So, just to give a bit of background, Jessica Yatrofsky is a Brooklyn-based photographer and filmmaker known for film and photographic work exploring body politics, beauty, and gender. She received her MFA from Parsons The New School for Design and published her first photography monograph, I Heart Boy, with Powerhouse Books in 2010, and her second photography monograph, I Heart Girl, in 2015. Jessica's photographic work is part of the permanent collection with the Leslie Lowell Museum of Gay and Lesbian Art. Her photography work has been exhibited overseas, and her film work has been both televised and screened at film festivals internationally. Gabrielle Blevins is a New York-based art and fashion model. She has appeared in both Teen Vogue and ID Magazine and is the lead singer of the band Peach Crush. Gabrielle is also the cover model for the I Heart Girl book, which we'll be talking about today. So, Jessica, so let's talk a bit about what led you to this project and your interest in the body.
Okay, well, I think it's good to start with a little bit of my background. I'm a trained painter. My background is in the applied arts, so painting, drawing, sculpture, performance art. And when I moved to New York, I was really interested in the body. I was always interested in the body from painting. And the form is something that, because it's always been of interest to me, once I arrived here, I sort of moved into performance art. And at that time, I was really working with the male body, simply because I just personally didn't have an experience with it. When I think in terms of what I'm seeing in the media, I just wasn't seeing the male form being just displayed in the same way that the female form was. So I was doing these performances at the time where I would invite an audience to come in and watch me photograph a male nude live. And while I was working on that project, I was photographing friends, lovers, couples, peers, art models. And so I had a really, I had a routine photographic process where I would just be doing an exercise of portraiture, essentially, of men and women. And because I was doing the performance art with the male nude, it just seemed fitting that I was recording a lot of male subjects. So I amassed such a large archive of these images that my first project that I published was I Heart Boy. And then once that project was sort of out in the world, I thought it's really time to start looking at the female nude now and the female body and start thinking about gender in relationship to the first project with the men.
It's been said that your work flirts with androgyny. Can you speak to that a bit?
Definitely. If you look at both of the books, like if you open them side by side, they look like brothers and sisters in a lot of ways. I like to think of it as both of the projects complement one another because they're so similar in nature. I think the only thing that's really separating them is anatomy. You know, because you look at the faces, you look at the bodies, the way these subjects are holding themselves, they're very similar. And, you know, aesthetically, of course, there's, you know, a commonality. But through line, I think, is androgyny and also that spectrum, right? You and I were discussing that with Gabrielle. And there's a spectrum. So I think the middle, the medium is androgynous, looking individual. And then it sort of sways to more feminine and more masculine. But the middle, that point that I'm making is this sort of bare, neutral, individual person.
And we were even talking about how, even with a future project with you, to even combine both,
right,
male and female in both
right.
books, which is would be super interesting for sure.
And the way that I'm showing the work now that I I Heart Girl is out is together. So I will show the men and women together because I think it's just appropriate. There's no longer a reason to separate the two because they're just so similar in nature.
Right. So, Gabrielle, I think it's safe to say, right, that you're androgynous, your look.
Yeah.
For sure.
I would say a little bit.
So maybe let's talk a little bit about how you first met Jessica and how you presented yourself and maybe a bit of your experience with that.
Yeah, okay, so I first met Jessica, so I've been modeling since I was like 16, but I've had short hair, I've presented myself pretty androgynously since I was like in 9th grade or whatever. And I met Jessica, even though I am a model and stuff, I arrived to like meet Jessica for the first time, like full like body hair, I was just like chilling out, and she was like, I think that's what kind of drew her to me was that I, didn't really have I don't know what I'm trying to say, I didn't really like present myself in any specific like gender way, I guess.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. Like when I met you for the first time, I mean, I was so I was like hypnotized by your androgyny, but also you have a lot of femininity in you, but even your voice is sort of like masculine. So there was this like duality, not even just your appearance, but the way that you sounded and the way that you carried yourself.
Yeah, I think that like my face is a little bit feminine, whatever, but I think definitely my like attitude and voice definitely helped me pull off the androgyny.
It's great. It's awesome. What about your other modeling experiences, would you say?
Well,
Just being a woman and then being maybe typecast or...
Well, I can give examples of like when I was in ID or when I was in Teen Vogue, I was like put into a suit, and I played kind of like an Annie Lennox character where I was like,
Were you paired with another model?
In Teen Vogue I was paired with another model,
How was she? Okay, a man.
Yeah, and he was wearing like more makeup than I was, and he was like, I don't know, it was really cool. He got definitely the best spread.
Oh yeah, pretty progressive for Teen Vogue.
Yeah.
I'd say. And so you said you've kind of, since 9th grade, how about your personal experiences as maybe not identifying with one or the other gender? Would you say? Well, I know my personal experience, I'll talk about myself for a second. I'm 32 and grew up in New York, and even just 10 years ago, androgyny was a signifier of your sexuality, and being a gay woman, that was your calling card, and now, 10 years later, present day, you can present however you like without assuming anything, I think. And I think that's really great and also something that we can explore. But it's just this melding of things. And then I guess it's kind of, maybe we can talk about the male gaze and the female gaze. Maybe we could lead into that, because now it's not just about a male gaze of sexuality with androgyny. Maybe you can speak a bit about the female gaze and how you present, how you attract with your subjects, and what do you think the difference is in regard to that?
When I think about the male gaze, I automatically think about film, like our experience with watching cinema. And that is something that we all, have in our mind's eye. That's what we grew up on. And that doesn't necessarily represent the way that I view the world. It's a very masculine view of the world. Of course, there's female filmmakers now, and you're sort of getting a lot of that, I guess, feminine gaze onto the world. I'm not entirely certain what the female gaze is, because it's relatively new, I guess.
How about for your personal experience?
Well,
So
for
maybe
me,
not, yeah.
when I think about what the female gaze means to me personally as an individual, I think that women tend to be observers. Even if you think of like Nan Golden or photographers that are into like, you know, social movements or recording, we're observers, we're looking, we get to be flies on the wall more so, we get to blend in more than men, I think, in a lot of ways, because there's more pressure, I think, for men to be in charge, aggressive, and I think women kind of lay back and they get to observe, and I think that that leads to some really awesome female photographers. And when I think of the gaze, I think of that. I think of, it's not about leading the charge and getting ahead, it's about sitting back, observing, working with subjects, getting them into a comfortable space where you can document their life.
Right, and that's kind of how you work as a dialogue. You don't really direct so much as conversate.
I don't force.
Yeah.
I am very collaborative. I mean, I've worked with both of you. You guys can speak to those experiences. And I think that the power in that is that you have the choice to participate how you see fit. So if you want to pose nude, pose nude. If you want to have your clothes on, have your clothes on. But I'm still going to extract the same moment because it's about being comfortable, it's about being grounded, it's about being vulnerable, and you don't need to be naked to be vulnerable. That can be captured in a myriad of ways. You know.
Right. Right. Sensuality versus sexuality. A bit. How was your experience shooting with Jessica, would you say?
It was, well, she makes you feel very comfortable. You know, I went in with the idea that my agency actually told me when I told them that I was going to be posing for the shoot. They told me,
them?
yeah,
Awesome.
they told me like,
Oh, they told you.
they told me like don't
Take your clothes
don't
off.
do nude. And I was like, yeah, of course, like I won't. And then I got there and Jess was like, she just makes you feel so comfortable, and I was like totally into it. So I was just like, you know what, like it's my body, my life, you know. So whatever, they got over it, I guess.
Totally awesome. Yeah, me personally, I feel like, you know, I'm just giving my body to the cause, you know?
You're very casual
I'm
about
very
it.
casual.
You're extremely casual
I'm
about
very
it.
casual about it.
And I think it's a contract, right? I mean, I feel that the subjects that I work with, even if they're, you know, somebody that I've worked with for years, like yourself, or somebody new, like Gabrielle, I communicate with my subjects before they even step foot in my house. I mainly shoot in my apartment, which leads to, I think, an atmosphere of more intimacy to be achieved. But we have a conversation through email or on the phone, and it's very clear, like, however they want to pose is how they're going to pose. We talk about nudity, we talk about their comfort level, and I always love when people are very adamant about, you know, wanting to keep their clothes on during a shoot, and then they arrive, and then I start shooting them, and then they want to take their clothes off, and I'm like, that's really beautiful. That's, I feel very lucky that they want to share that side of themselves with me. It's a very sacred agreement, I think, between a subject and the photographer. It's about trust, right?
Right. I also want to talk about how your book doesn't say that it's going to talk about every woman or every, you know, it's your personal experience. Maybe we can, you know, talk a little bit about that. I know that you and I have spoken about how we don't really read comments about what other people are saying, you know, because
nobody believes us, but
yeah, that no one's trying to say that this is the Bible of gender. It's just a discussion and a viewpoint and people as individuals.
Right.
So maybe if you want to kind of talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, and it's not a survey of every demographic of every type of woman. I think it's important to realize that these are women in my circle. They're relatively close to my age. They represent the community of women that I live among. And so it's really about celebrating women in that way, in a very particular way. I don't think it would be very honest if I tried to take a survey of everyone. I don't think that that would really communicate what I was doing with, with both the books. I mean, they were tight circles of people and also referrals of women that knew other women in couples. And about the commons, I think that once you make a project and you put it out into the world, it's kind of irrelevant what people have to say about, not about the work, but because I'm dealing with images of people, it's what they have to say about the people. That's irrelevant. I think that everybody is entitled to their opinion, and while I think that that's invited in a forum like this, because like you're here, if you ask me a question, I can answer you, and that becomes a dialogue. But when you're reading comments on a thread and people are faceless, they can say whatever they want. And they're entitled to that too, but I don't read it.
Right.
Yeah.
And because we've also spoken about that, you viewing ourselves as individuals, and you see everyone as an individual, not as this just categorized thing. So it's really like a study of these particular subjects.
Right.
Also, which, and as far as comments, like, would you agree with the attitude of aggression, like, if you don't get something, you're like aggressive towards it, right? So it's like, well, I can't really interpret this, I don't understand this, so I don't get it, so now I'm angry about it. So now I'm gonna make a comment about it.
And I think that happens to a lot of us, like, in the day-to-day, like, especially when I had shorter hair, I would get comments like, oh, like, what do you think you are? Like, what are you doing,
Yeah.
Like, are you a girl? What, like, and it's none of their business.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're totally, and where other people would maybe act out like that, I think you said that instead of, if you don't get it, you get angry, you've said that you want to celebrate it and you want to explore it.
Right, I think
So that's what's intriguing to you.
Right, that is what attracts me.
Yeah.
What repulses people, I think,
Yeah.
attracts me because, pardon, it's not about getting it for me. I think it's about celebrating it and examining it and exploring it and elevating it rather than trying to categorize it, right? And I think when we talk about categorizing, it really is an aggressive act. I mean, we were talking about, this idea of like being catcalled or the reverse of that. That's also a way of people trying to figure out what you are, who you are, how they fit into your idea of, gender, of sexuality, of their ability to determine whether, they can have sex with you, depending on, the environments. You spoke to that.
Yeah, I had an experience when I was like, I was in probably like the 9th grade. I had just cut my hair off for the first time, so I had like short hair, I was this gangly little like 9th grader. And this girl like chased me, like straight up chased me down the street. And she was like, I mean, it wasn't that she was calling me names or anything, but she was like, she just kept asking like, are you gay? And she was just chasing me down the street, and I was just like, leave me alone, what does it matter? Like, I finally just, like, put myself into a group of people that were on the street, and I was just like, I don't even know what's happening, so I can't explain to you what's happening.
Yeah.
But, like, this girl is chasing me, and I need safety right now.
That's scary.
See, I'd be chasing you for the different
Yes.
I'd be like, come back to my somebody being upset by your image.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I just love the idea of thinking about gender fluidity, like how we're moving closer and closer towards a more fluid
Yeah.
society.
And just to bring it up about social media, I mean, I think that it is because of that, the more visibility of people that you can see street style in London on your phone, and just that everyone, there's just this new melding because we're just exposed to it more. This, you grew up in South Carolina, you know, yeah, and like now kids, it's a, even like, 10 years ago, this new technology now, it's just people are scared of what they can't see or what they don't know. And now that we can see everything basically now, you can view whatever you want. So let's talk about the art, your I Heart Boy book as well. You were saying how it's interesting how I Heart Girl is put in the art book section at stores, and I Heart Boy is in the homoerotic section. So how women are, I Heart Boy is in homoerotic and I Heart Girl is in art. So it's still women's bodies used for consumption. This idea that the male body is exclusive only to sex for men, but women, maybe let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, women are seen as art objects in a lot of ways, in many ways, and probably every way. And that doesn't really make sense to me because I studied art history. And for anyone who studied art history, you know the Greek and the Roman statues and the penises and how that was a sign of fertility, of masculinity, of strength, of beauty. But we just don't see that in mainstream, and even when it's presented as art, it's always LGBT geared, it's in gay bookstores, it's in the homoerotic section. Like, I don't take erotic photos.
Right.
And I talk about this a lot because I think that that's a very personal experience. If you're looking at either of my books, and they're not erotic unless you happen to find one of the subjects in the book erotic to you.
Right.
Because the subjects are not presented in that way. They're presented in a way that is more of a study rather than, I think, the sexual chemistry between me and the subject, because there is none. I'm not bringing that to a shoot. I'm not bringing that into an environment with a subject. I'm merely working with them to create an image that is celebrating the body, is a reflection of who they are as an individual, looking at their face, playing with eye contact versus non-eye contact. So it doesn't feel particularly erotic to me, and I don't fuck my subjects.
Right.
So when I think about eroticism, I think about different photographers making different types of work that I really enjoy as well.
Yeah.
But that's not the type of work that I make.
Right. It's totally desexualized. It's humanized. Right. Where it's the study of human more so than, sexuality, but maybe not so much. Right. Just a study of the body, like
Right.
you were saying.
And it is aestheticized, but it's more of a look, a gaze onto somebody, a study of them, as opposed to just an aggressive look at their sexuality.
Yeah. Because even the most masculine of more masculine leaning women in the book are presented as soft, even just because of the way that you shoot, right? This particular style that you have.
Right.
Let's see. What else we have here? I think I also, just to kind of wrap up, our talk of androgyny, because I think that's mostly what both your books speak to. Just how androgyny has kind of become like all humanizing, and also as far as gender, but also as far as age. That androgyny has kind of, you know, has taken the restrictions off of what is age appropriate or what you look like at a certain age. You know, we can talk about Elliot Sailors, who is the model. She was a bikini model, and then when her career was kind of ending around 25 or 26, became a male model and cut off all her hair and is this gorgeous man, and is now in the height of her career because of this. So the androgyny has allowed her to extend herself, because now she's just being examined as a beautiful person as opposed to someone who you want to fuck, right? Even Casey Ledgler, who started modeling late 20s or 30s as a male model, where this opportunity wouldn't be available to them now, like if they were presenting as women. And Gabrielle, how do you kind of feel about that?
I mean, I think that, yeah, I've seen a lot of like young women come and go, because you do age out like mid-20s. Like myself as a female model, and coming, even though I'm only 20 years old, I'm coming to like I'm over the hill, I guess. And all of the male models that I know are like much older than I am, and so I can relate. And I guess in like growing older and being more androgynous, I definitely see my pathways open up more. Because as a female model, unless you make it big in the first like couple of runway seasons or whatever, that's it for you.
Yeah, because we've kind of come from this supermodel look of the 90s to now this more, starting with Calvin Klein and Kate Moss, this wave. Maybe that's kind of like where this started. I'm just making brain waves. And like male models are allowed to have tattoos. Also, the more tattoos the better, whereas a woman, it was kind of like you need to be this clean canvas, but now more women are able to have tattoos as models and just, in life, I suppose.
I love that. I think that it speaks more to subjects being able to be individuals. I mean, so many girls in the book have tattoos. Even you have tattoos in your model.
Yeah,
So
my agency was not happy about that.
But to speak to your point about androgyny being ageless, I think is what you've said time and time again, and it is in a lot of ways, because you're able to sort of fly under the radar. And it's not so much a question of what your age is when they don't know your gender. I think you're just an intriguing person, or you're a beautiful spirit, and people gravitate to that before they're trying to categorize you in a lot of ways, when you present yourself like that.
Yeah, the preconceptions and notions are kind of, you have to just get to know someone.
When I met Gabrielle, I had like a similar experience where I was really attracted to you, I gravitated towards you, and it was because the way you presented yourself was just very individual. I didn't feel like you were playing up a role or playing down a role, like you were just presenting yourself as you saw yourself, I think.
Yeah, I try to stay as true to myself as I can, which, that's given me a lot modeling, but also, sometimes people don't want models that are individuals,
Yeah.
So, it's hard sometimes, but the rewards are definitely better for being myself.
Totally.
You stood out so much. When I met you, I was shooting a few subjects the day that I met Gabrielle, and we've actually shot many times since that first shoot, but when I photographed her, I knew that she was the cover. I knew the image that was going to be the cover when I shot that. When I did that shoot with you, I just knew it immediately, intuitively. I was like, you represent everything that I care about in terms of being able to communicate masculinity and femininity. And you shouldn't be so surprised because we've talked about this before.
I know.
I like shower you and love all the time about it. But I think that was a key factor in why you were chosen for the cover. But it wasn't anything that I milled over. I just saw it immediately. Like I shoot on film, and this entire book is shot on film. And when I looked through the viewfinder and I saw you, it was even before I snapped the picture, I was like, this is the cover. Okay, check, done. And I even had a moment where I was considering someone else for the cover just for fun, but I still knew that you were the cover. And yeah, it was because you represented that duality.
Yeah.
My heart.
Love fest.
No, yeah, totally. It's totally about being an individual, not living up to some impossible idea of what a woman's supposed to look like, you know, or a man for that matter. All right, well, I think I'm going to open it up to the audience now if we have any comments or questions or thoughts. This attractive person in front.
I was wondering, I know you shot a lot of couples too, and I've been to a couple of your talks and you haven't really touched on that. Like, what was your experience shooting couples? Because then it becomes less about the androgyny and the truth emanating from this one person who you're connecting with, and more about their connection or lack of connection or what they think is a connection. Like, did you see a lot more going on that made it a little harder for you to sort of get in touch with what you were trying to get? Did you find that it helped? I like personally, like I know you shot me with someone else and it wasn't a great day, and none of those photos like surfaced ever, and it was just like sad mug shots, you know, in the end. And so like that to me like says a lot, and I was wondering if you could speak on shooting couples as opposed to just this one person's emanating energy at you.
Well, I think it's about chemistry, right? And then if you're shooting, it's three people. If you're shooting a couple together, it's not just a connection that I'm having with one person. It's a connection that I'm having with two people, and all three of us together, and how we're melding, really. But to speak to, you know, if pictures don't surface, it's probably because they're not conveying the intimacy that are being achieved with other couples. So I was thinking about almost every couple except for one in the book are broken up, but it's such a beautiful, just it's captured a time in their lives when they were together and really into each other, and I love that about the couple photos. And I'm not sure what else you were asking about.
Well, I just mean like, 'cause then it does become about sexuality. Like,
I think it's more sensuality,
Okay.
really, and intimacy, and like extreme vulnerability, right? Because now it's not just you naked or, you know, together with your partner, but you're sort of balancing the energy with your partner and sharing that with a photographer. So I think that in terms of like burying yourself, you're doing it as a trio, and that's like extremely fragile and beautiful and sacred.
Yeah, I didn't mean like, I wasn't trying to like, where are my photos?
photos?
No, that's actually not what I meant at all. I was more just saying because the pictures of one person is inherently like genderless and more about the androgyny, and then the pictures of two women together, it becomes something different. I just wanted you to speak on that.
But it's nice because it's like when you flip through the book, it's sort of a break, right? You're having an experience with one subject, and now you're having an experience with two that are having a connection with each other.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Well, and then even with the couples, like I know some of them, they had different body shapes. Like some had smaller tits and some had bigger, you know, and even in relation to each other. So even that is kind of confusing because then you're thinking, well, who's the boy and who's the girl? Maybe they're both girls, or maybe they're both boys, or, you know, like, so I think that even then is even more intriguing also. Do you think? two women together also, because now you do have to think about their relationship also, and and then them as individuals.
I think the way that I look at it, even when I was selecting the photos, is their comfort level in the actual image. So if I'm looking through, it's not just about, it becomes more about the composition, right? And more about just the subject matter. It's about visibly seeing the connection between the two of them. It's less about me and my my desire for what I want the picture to look like, and more about like what they're giving to each other and then offering to me in an image.
Cool. Yeah.
You mentioned painting before. I'm not familiar with your work, so I haven't done my background research here. But can you speak a little bit more to the painting? And I realize that's not maybe your current thing that you're working on or exploring, but maybe there's something you can say about that medium and how it imparts influence on this work, or
Sure, I mean,
or painters you love today.
Well, I love painting. I don't paint anymore. Not to say that I won't again, but that informs how I view the world. That's how I started as an artist, and I think that when you have that foundation, you can never forget about it. I mean, it's about color, it's about composition, it's about studying an onion and looking at an onion and realizing that it's not white. It's full of all these different colors, but you're only going to have that experience with it if you sit with it. So I think a lot of my practice as a photographer is sitting with the subject, getting into a routine, getting comfortable. I shoot on film, so it kind of it's a slow process as well. And painting is you're layering, right? But you're also chiseling away at an idea of something, like painting, whatever it is you're painting. And I think I have an appreciation for color and composition, and that's why I feel that painting is just my everything. I feel like my photos are painterly in that respect, because I'm not just like snapping. Like I'm seating a subject down, I'm turning them a certain way, or I'm seeing how they are feeling comfortable. So it's almost like they're sitting for me to paint them, but I'm using a camera instead of a canvas and a paintbrush.
Hi. I'm just wondering, I find androgyny is actually becoming a lot more mainstream now. You see like the boyfriend cuts really in, and
Right.
Gap pictures and all that, like more like man one goes to Gap kind of a thing. Do you think that that's going to make the type of work that you're doing more mainstream and acceptable, and less of a look at gender, and more of a look at that you can express yourself as an androgynous person, or even if you're not, even if that's just how you choose to dress? And I find that it's becoming more described as a classic look than an androgynous look, and I found that flip happened within the last couple months even. Like I had
Right.
never heard of it like that. Has that kind of changed, your approach, or how you think that your work is going to be viewed in the future, or anything like that?
That's a very thoughtful question. Thank you for asking that. I think, if anything, in this type of work, when we're talking about the body, when we're talking about gender, we should hope that it becomes mainstream, because it's going to raise awareness, and people are going to care more about these issues. They're going to care more about women's issues. So I think the more mainstream, the better. Now, if you're talking about trend, that's another topic. And I think that, we've spoken great lengths about designers that are sort of getting on the bandwagon of, playing with gender roles and, in their collections, and using specific models to sort of make that statement. It's not for me to say whether it's authentic or not, or if it's just trendy. I don't care, it's out there. So I'm seeing it, and I think that is important, that we see it, whatever the intention is, that it's just visible.
Did you say classic or traditional?
I said classic.
Classic.
I haven't heard traditional, but I guess they're kind of synonymous in some ways.
Because that's interesting, because I think classic, when you, I think that goes back to desexualization. So it's like when something's classic, we kind of think of like the 50s, you know, when things were like buttoned down, like things were a little bit more formal. And then, you know, we got over-sexualized, you know, we're kind of coming back, you know, maybe in that way. I think that it's being deemed classic because it's just, yeah, like there's no sex attached to it. I mean, sex is attached to everything, but more so maybe in this regard. But then it's interesting because if you feel sexless, I think that allows you to explore everything. Just to go back to Elliot Sailor's, I was talking with my friend Amy about it, like she's married, but now she's in an open relationship with a woman now also. And it's like because she's been able to explore what she looks like, it's kind of given her like this cloak, this like invisibility cloak, where she can do whatever she wants. You know, so that's really interesting how maybe desexualize. You got it. Leads to more sexuality, you know, so that's something to think about. Any other questions, guys, ladies? Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with a funny joke. Okay, so why are single women thinner than married women? Because a single woman comes home, looks in the fridge, and then goes to bed. A married woman comes home, looks in the bed, and then goes to the fridge. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your